Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Onboarding and Customer Success Masterclass. I'm Laura Vacher, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at CAST. So before we start, I just want to give you an update on an exciting event that we have coming up next week. On Thursday, April 8th at 7 p.m., is the Woman Entrepreneur edition of the Kootenai Pitch Competition. This is the last of 3 qualifying pitch events before the grand finale in May. So 3 amazing Kootenai women entrepreneurs are competing for cash, prizes, and all of the glory. Cheer on Adele of Sacral Solutions in Creston, Sarah Hobbs of Carmawell in Kimberley, and Terry Van Horn of Smart One Technologies in Nelson, as they pitch their businesses to our panel of judges. Tickets are free, so register to get yours at cas.com/kpc3. I will put the link in the chat for you. And now the moment that you've been waiting for, I'm pleased to introduce our presenter today, Jean Nairon. So Jean Nairon is a Volition advisor specializing in customer strategy and technology with over 20 years experience in startups and enterprise companies. He also has over 15 years of experience working in customer success. He works with companies of all sizes to define how they should best manage their customers to drive significant user adoption and increase renewals and expansions. Jean, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm just going to share my screen here. One second. So as we were just saying, I've been working in customer success for quite some time. I have quite a bit of experience in building out customer success or post-sales organizations for startup, young companies, startups, and also all the way up to like billion-dollar companies. I actually am originally from northern British Columbia as well. A little bit further north than you guys. I actually grew up in Fort Nelson at the very top of the province. But I've since been all over Canada. I've lived in almost every single province. As you can probably tell from my name, I'm French Canadian. And I actually now work for, currently am working as a startup advisor with Volition, but I also currently work as a head of customer success operations for a company out of Boston called PTC. That's a billion-dollar company. And so I've got quite a vast amount of experience in all sets of sort of stages of the business and how we can drive and make customers successful and hopefully make sure that they become advocates and expand with you. And I really wanted to share that with you today. So let's just get started. Feel free during the course of this presentation, if you do have any questions that come up, feel free to just raise your hand or unmute yourself. You can ask me the question directly. I unfortunately won't be able to look at both the chat and my presentation at the same time. And so just if you have any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. So the questions that we're going to be answering today is all around customer growth. You know, it's important as you continue, as you grow your business, that your customers are growing with you. And some of the key questions that we're going to be answering today are: how will your customer journey help you grow your company? What is a customer journey? What is it that you should be thinking about? How does it help you grow your customers? And then how does it grow your company? On the second question we want to be addressing today is: what is a customer growth engine? And so we look at the customer journey. We're going to be using that to drive growth in your business. And so we'll be using today to talk through what that growth engine looks like. What are the components? What are the pieces that you want to put in your engine and make sure that it's running smoothly? And last but not least, how do you drive it? How do you get in behind the steering wheel and make sure that you can drive it, pedal to the maximum, and start growing your business and hopefully reaching your next milestones, and going from startup to early stage, and then off to a full-fledged business, and hopefully you can one day get to 100 people or to $1 million in revenue, and keep growing from that. And so these questions, I'm going to focus a lot about stories around startups, but when I look at a $1 billion company or an early stage company that is pre-revenue, we actually go through the exact same things. We're all focused around the customer, or should be focused around the customer. And we should be focused around, how do we drive our customers forward? How do we make sure that they're getting the value that they're expecting out of our products, they're reaching their outcomes, and they're eventually, hopefully, returning every year and renewing, and hopefully expanding and maybe purchasing more software or more products or more services, or whatever it is that you may be selling. My examples tend to focus a lot more on technology startups, but I'll also talk a little bit more about non-technology startups or to other types of businesses. But truly, the solutions and the best practices that I provide here are really applicable to any type of business that you can ever think of. If you've got a customer or someone that you're doing something for, and you want to be able to help serve them or help them return, and hopefully purchase more things from you, this is incredibly applicable. It doesn't matter if you're selling cookies, or if you're selling software, or if you're selling, if you're a gym class trying to sell services or gym gear or anything like that. You want to be able to have your customers continuing and returning and purchasing more. And so this will be directly applicable to you here. So let's get started. So what is a customer journey? A customer journey is really the set of activities and the set of things that your customer will do to go through in purchasing your tools or purchasing your products or services, and being able to use them, and then being able to hopefully take advantage of them to get the value that they're expecting, and then hopefully renew or buy a second time, or possibly an expansion in the sense of buying something further. And so I look at, for example, here, this is a bit of a journey here on the side here. We have just kind of a line where the customer starts with, purchasing the software. There may be some events there usually is some events that happen in advance of that. For example, a customer might become just aware of your products. They might get some of your marketing materials and see, what are the things that you sell. And then they may talk to someone about purchasing those things. Or it might be completely online, and they go through a digital experience where they go through, maybe a store, for example, and see your products, and then make a selection and hit the purchase button. At that point, that's kind of the first start. That purchase point is the kickstart of everything that happens from your customer journey. Before that, we call that, before that purchase, it's all about acquisition, right? Being able to market to your customer, being able to make sure that they purchase or get through the sales cycle. And then beyond that, it's everything beyond that is what we would consider as a customer journey. So they've now purchased, they're now officially a customer. And then what are the activities and things that have to happen afterwards that gets them to the next purchase of the renewal? Moving along here on this chain, we go into a kickoff, in this example where maybe a customer starts and we define, we define a bit of a project plan. We define who's going to do what are the roles and responsibilities. In this case here, they then get onboarded. So that maybe the client purchased 100 licenses and 5 features. And so we need to help them set that up and get those licenses enabled. We may have certain other events further down where we meet with the customer and do reviews, maybe discuss their goals, figure out how they're going to get to those goals and achieve that value. We might have some expansion events where, maybe the customer ends up using all 100 licenses, and now they're continuing to grow and they now need a new 50 licenses. Or if it's in a store, for example, maybe they came in once and then they came back again a second time to buy something further. And so those are all kind of upsell or cross-sell or expansion opportunities that you're hoping to give the customer more, and hopefully get paid for those things as well. And if you have a subscription type model, hopefully after year one, or maybe it's a 3-year term or a 5-year term, hopefully they're coming back and renewing to purchase for another term. So this path here is effectively the customer journey. As I said, it's a set of activities that you may do or the customer may do. It's the level, it's all of the engagements that you might have between you and your customer. So the various touch points where you might talk to them person to person, one-on-one in a physical location. You might talk to them through Zoom or through email or whatever. It might be a completely digital interaction where maybe there's automated emails that are reaching out to the customer and they click on purchase, and you know, there's no real human touch there, but it's completely digital. And it's all of the transactions that happen along the way. So the financial transactions, the purchase, the upsell purchase, or the renewal. Those are all the kinds of pieces that come in a journey. And we'll deep dive a little bit further on that as well. But this just gives you a bit of a high level view of what that journey is. And the reason why this is so important is because a journey is a path to get to the customer, to get the customer to value. So value meaning, you know, what did they buy and how do they get the value that they're expecting out of it? So for example, if I bought a t-shirt, my value might be the first time I wear it. If I buy software, the value might be, you know, getting it implemented, starting to use it, and leveraging it for whatever purpose that software may have. For other products, like for you know, getting into shape, if I go to a gym and I pay for a membership and I pay for a trainer, maybe that trainer is helping me to run a marathon or to go for my first hike of the year or something like that. Those are all value moments that the journey will help you get your customer to reach that value. And then one of the couple key things around that journey is that if you plan it out, if you figure that journey out, you will hopefully be able to make sure that your customer stays along that journey and you can kind of keep nudging them along, and hopefully they don't fall off the path, and hopefully they keep, you know, you are successful at reaching that, getting them to that sort of those outcomes of renewals and expansion. The worst thing that can happen with any customer journey is the customer gets disengaged. You know, for example, maybe they bought or they downloaded an application or something on their iPhone, and they downloaded it, they purchased it, but then never logged in again. Or maybe they logged in once, kicked the tires, and then never came back again. Those are all things that you really want to avoid. You want to ensure that your customer is coming back, and you want to ensure that they're expanding and getting that value. As you are working with your customers on this journey, you are very much the coach that is helping them reach those outcomes and get to that top of the journey there. And so it's really important that, you know, you plan that out, you work with them to get there, and hopefully drive those successes. So just to paint a little bit more of a picture of what that is. So I've put together kind of a map here of you can imagine this is someone climbing a mountain and reaching to the top here. When a customer first purchases, you can think of this as time 0, and then time progresses, right? Of course, and eventually they keep climbing the mountain. And the height here is the value that they achieve. And so you can imagine, so day 1, you buy something, you know, and then you start using it and you start achieving more and more value. For us, the reason why we are in customer success and in any company trying to deliver value is to eventually get paid, right? The whole purpose of business is to make money, to deliver value, and to get paid for that value. And so as you think of your customer, you know, they start at the bottom here, and they are trying to reach this value, and hopefully pay you for this money, or pay you for the value. And so you are, as I mentioned earlier, you are the coach that's helping them along this journey and getting them up up the mountain. As you said earlier, you don't want a customer who's, not engaged or who maybe stops using your services. And I always like to think about is that, at any point in this journey, a customer can fall off the path and can fall off the mountain. And that's the kind of thing that you really want to avoid, because you want to get them to the top here. And with any journey, just like climbing Mount Everest, this is a bit of a marathon. It's not something that, most products, it's not something that you just purchase and get immediate value. Usually it takes a bit of time, right, for the customer to really adopt things and really understand how to best use your products and how to best get the value. And so it is a bit of a marathon. It is a bit of a longer journey. You want to make sure that that's planned out so that it's not just, reactive, and you're not just sort of trying to figure it out along the way. And just like anything, right? Like those longer journeys, those longer paths, like things like climbing Mount Everest, they have to be planned out. You cannot just show up to, base camp 1, at Mount Everest and decide that you're just going to climb to the top. You have to plan that activity out. You have to get help. You have to figure out what points are you going to sleep, what points are you going to climb, how much food do you need, and all of those things to be able to reach the top of that mountain. And so it's incredibly important that you spend the time to think through this and ensure that you can help those clients get to the top. And in the end, that's going to help you grow and protect your annual recurring revenue. And so we call that ARR in the business, but your annual recurring revenue is essentially just that subscription. That's that recurring revenue that keeps coming back. To grow and protect that, you really want to map out that journey and make sure that you can deliver on your customers' outcomes and deliver great experiences, and hopefully they'll always reach the top. Through that course of that journey, there's kind of 2 main components of that journey. So there's the top, and usually what we call that is the outcomes. Where does the customer want to get to, and what do they want to achieve with your products or services or whatever you may be selling. And then the other component is an experience. How is that customer experiencing your products and services? What's the experience with you? What's the experience within your store, on your website, all of those things, and within the product. And we often think about these things as a bit of a yin and yang, or 2 sides of the spectrum that have to be in balance. And so when you think about outcomes here, just on this horizontal axis, outcomes, you can have poor outcomes, or you can have successful outcomes, or not successful outcomes. And so when I think of, for example, if I go into a coffee shop, so the reason why I go into a coffee shop as a customer, and the outcome that I'm there for, is to buy a cup of coffee. I can go into a coffee shop and I can either be successful in that outcome, so I can get my coffee and walk out and be happy with the coffee, or I can be unsuccessful. And I could walk in, they tell me, for example, that sorry, we don't have coffee, we only have teas here, or they may tell me that they ran out of coffee. And those are 2 scenarios that can happen as you walk into a business. Of course, you always want to have that customer successful, so you hope that they can get the coffee and not walk out empty-handed. And then there's also the experience when you walk into a coffee shop. And so you can imagine, like when you walk into Starbucks is incredibly focused on the experience. They make sure that the music is right. They make sure that the atmosphere is right. They make sure that the tables are clean. There's nice seating. There's nice places where you can, meet someone to have coffee, or you can sit and read. They've also got a ton of other products there. So if you're, you might be a bit hungry, or you might want some sweet or something to go along with the coffee and have a better experience. And so they've really focused around ensuring that you can get your coffee, but you can also get the right experience. Compared to a 7-Eleven. I can get coffee in a 7-Eleven. You know, I will always be successful, and I can always get coffee, but it may not be the greatest experience, right? Like a 7-Eleven is probably not the spot where you'll sit down and enjoy your coffee or talk with your friend or whatever it may be. And so when you're thinking about building your business for driving growth, you always have to focus on having those two sides of it. You know, delivering on the customer's outcomes. What do they come in for? What are they looking to purchase, or what are they looking to achieve with your products? And ensuring that that's the right experience. So I talked a little bit about Starbucks as a great example. Apple is also a great example, that they focus very heavily on both the experience and the outcomes. There are some businesses that do great with just delivering outcomes and don't worry about experience, or you know, don't focus as heavily on experience. But that's where they end up kind of in this box here. So typically, when you reach outcomes, or you have the outcomes that you're expecting, but it's not the greatest experience, you're most likely not to come back or to renew. So for example, if I go into a Starbucks and I get my coffee, but the experience is terrible. So maybe there was like heavy metal music in there, and it's just, you know, super loud. The staff were not nice. The floor was sticky, and it just wasn't a very nice environment. I likely, even though I got my coffee and I'm walking out with the thing that I bought, and I went in for a coffee, it's very unlikely that I'll ever go back, because it just wasn't the right experience. Like, I expect to come in and it be nice and have a nice jingle, and for the floors to be clean. And so, you know, you don't want to be in this box where you're delivering, you know, maybe on the things that you were expected to deliver on, but it's not a great positive experience. Over on the top here, where you know, you might have a fantastic experience, but the customer is not delivering, or is not achieving their outcomes. For example, if again, in the coffee shop, if I walk into the coffee shop, it's the most beautiful coffee shop in the world. Maybe there's a nice view of the ocean, you know, whatever it may be, but they just don't have coffee. For whatever reasons, they ran out of coffee, or you know, the product is, they just don't sell the product. I won't go back. As a customer, I just won't go back, because I was unsuccessful in purchasing the thing that I was supposed to get. And so again, these customers are either at risk of churn. So in a subscription model, they will, churn means cancellation or canceling. So you may think about canceling, or if you are not in subscription, you probably just won't come back. And then, of course, last but not least, here in this last box is all about customers who are not reaching the outcomes and who are not getting a great experience. I mean, if you go to a place that is dirty and doesn't have a nice atmosphere, is incredibly dirty, the staff are not very helpful, and they don't have coffee, I mean, you're definitely not ever going back there. And you're likely going to be telling your friends, hey, don't ever go down to that coffee shop, because that has got to be the worst experience I've ever experienced. And so at this point here, you're probably unhappy and unsuccessful, and you're most likely going to be telling the world about how terrible that place was. On the flip side, if it was a fantastic experience, and if it was, you know, you got the coffee that you wanted, not only you're going to return, but you're likely going to be telling others about it, which will help grow that business as well. You may not know that you're really helping to grow the business, but hey, I might just, you know, I run into my friend and I say, hey, did you try that new coffee shop down the street? It's fantastic. That is an amazing experience. That's an amazing outcome for the business, to have a customer walk in, get the right outcome, get the right experience, and then start telling others about it, so that hopefully it brings more business into your company. And so, as I said, this is a bit of a balance in making sure that you always deliver on the outcomes that your customers are looking for, and that you always deliver on the right experiences. And as I was kind of describing earlier, experiences can happen in store, experiences can happen online as I walk through like an online store or go through a digital experience, or they can happen in your product as well as I log into the application and start clicking on buttons and figuring out what I need to do. Those are all experiences that the customers will have with you, and you just want to make sure that you're thinking about how those experiences look and how they make people feel, and hopefully that they're incredibly positive experiences. So as we think of that framework with that in mind, so you're trying to grow your customer to reach the outcomes that they're hoping to achieve with your product, and you're trying to deliver it with an exceptional experience. As we think of that framework, what we often think about in business is what are all the things that have to be delivered to be able to deliver on those two things, those outcomes and those experiences. And that for us in a customer success world or in modern day business world is called the customer and growth engine. So how do I make sure that I deliver on the outcomes, make sure that I deliver on the experiences, and hopefully in the end get someone who comes back all the time, who's not at risk of leaving me or churning or whatever it may be, or canceling or not coming back, and who is hopefully becoming an advocate. So that model is what we're going to be jumping into here in more details. And so I've got a bit of a high level framework, and I just want to walk you through a little bit here, and then we'll deep dive further. So when a customer comes to you, when they first start becoming aware of who you are, what you sell, what are the products and services that you have, they really start as part of this like acquisition engine. And so the acquisition engine is your marketing and sales functions, right? A customer, they're not a customer yet, but let's call it a human. So a human comes to you, and at this point, they really start out as a lead. They are someone who is just becoming aware. They maybe just found out who you are. They just heard about the coffee shop down the street, or they just found out in the app store that there's a new app, or they heard about it in a commercial or some type of advertisement. And so they just became aware of it. They just found out about it. First thing that will happen is they may just fall off. At any point in the time, they may fall off and say, you know what, not interested. That's not for me. I have no interest at all. Or ideally, they become interested. And then at that point, they might start considering your products and they become a prospect. And so we think of, in a pure like kind of business perspective, we think of this as sort of the marketing side of things, and then this as the sales side. I tend to avoid using marketing and sales terminology because those are really functions of our business, and they're really of an inward facing perspective. And what I want you to think about right now is more about the human, the customer, or the person that you're trying to reach out to and engage, and hopefully they buy your products. It's less about your functions and your structure of your business, and more about how do these people interact with you or work with your business. And so they start out as a lead, as I said, and they hopefully will become a prospect where they consider your products and services, and then hopefully they purchase. And this piece of the engine is, as I said, the acquisition engine. Hopefully this is fueling the growth of your business from an acquisition standpoint. Once they become a customer and they actually make the purchase, so at this point, the human now transitions into a customer. They've made that first transaction. They often post the first transaction, they need to get set up. So in onboarding, in a context of an application, if I buy a business software, for example, I want to buy Microsoft Office for my business, onboarding would be all of the setup it needs that I need to do to set up Microsoft Office for my business. So for example, I might get the application in an email or a link in an email that says, go download the application here. I might have to download it. I might have to set up some licenses for some of my team, or I might have to do some other type of configuration or whatnot. Microsoft Office doesn't have a lot of steps, but if you imagine like a finance software, for example, there are quite a few steps in those tools to set up for a company. I might have to put in my name, my company name. I might have to put in some details about, the business and the customers and whatnot. And so there's quite a few more steps to onboard. For other applications like, or for example, like a box delivery service, for onboarding, the only thing that I might have to do is put in my address and my details of, leave my package at the door, type information. I might have to put in some information about my specific requirements. Like for example, if I'm signing up for a food box, there might be some information that I have to put in that says, what are the things that I can't eat or that I don't want, or what are the things what are the types of foods that I do want in my box, or make some of those selections. And so those are the pieces that get the customer set up in your product. And so it can be very different for the different types of products that you sell. And then once they're set up and they're all ready to go, we really kind of move into an adoption motion where we want them to get them to use it, right? Like if they bought a software or they downloaded, let's say for example, downloaded a game on my iPhone. The first step to download the game might have had to set up some things and sign in to the application and whatnot and put in my name, and maybe I had to put an avatar or an icon for my picture and come up with a name for my account, and maybe and that was kind of the initial steps of onboarding. And then once I start using it and logging in every single day, those are the kind of the adoption steps where I'm logging in every single day, I'm using the application, and hopefully winning at the game or whatever it may be. During those steps of adoption, companies are often looking at what are the adoption paths. So for example, how often is a customer logging in? Do they play for 10 minutes or do they play for an hour? And if the customers are not reaching my adoption goals, I may email them to say, hey, did you know you can do this? Or, we haven't seen you in a while. I may email them about features that they haven't clicked on yet, and I want to tell them about those features so that hopefully they can start using that. If I'm a Facebook, for example, I might email someone, that, hey, we haven't seen you, if they haven't posted a picture or posted something in a long time. And so it's really all about getting someone to use it and continue to use it. Once they've started to adopt the products and really leverage things, I may be starting to think about, how do I expand? How do I get them to purchase a little bit more? And so not every product, especially in an early stage, not every product has expansion opportunities, right? When you first go to market with a startup or with the business, there might be just one product and it might be all or nothing. You either buy the whole product or you don't. But as you continue to grow and as your company continues to mature and you kind of, build more things into the product, there might be some opportunities to have tiers. So, for example, there's a lot of software nowadays out there that has tiers where you might have a starter package. And then eventually, once the customer is maybe, has adopted that starter package and is leveraging that, there might be the next level for them to grow into. And that getting them to that next level is an expansion. If you are in a store and you sell clothing, for example, the customer may have come in just to buy a pair of jeans, and you may talk to them and try to drive an upsell where you might sell them a t-shirt as well. And so those are, in the context of a store, that's an expansion of the deal that the customer came in for. In the context of software, it tends to be around, purchasing more features. In the context of a food box, it might be, maybe I bought a box that comes every 2 weeks with one meal, for example, in the box. But maybe, after a month or two, I buy a second meal, and now I'm getting 2 meals every 2 weeks, or maybe it's 4 meals, or maybe it's every week, for example, or in the context of software, maybe I bought 5 licenses to begin with, and then I'm gonna buy an additional 2 more licenses, and so those are all expansion opportunities where the customer started with purchasing one thing with you. They maybe paid you $1, and then over time you increase the amount of things that they purchased, and hopefully that dollar becomes $2, $3, $4, whatever it may be. And those are what we consider expansions. And then in the bottom here, last but not least, is all about the renewal. So if a customer has purchased a subscription, they're coming back every year or every term, and they're continuing to renew. Subscriptions come in all sorts of terms. Some subscriptions are weekly, daily, monthly, yearly, all the way up to 5-year terms on big software license deals. And so, it doesn't really matter how long the term of your subscription is, but in the end, whenever that is, that end date is, you want them to come back and hopefully renew and continue on with your products. Those are, at this point here, that human has become your customer. If you can deliver on these things, the intent is to turn that human into an advocate. So an advocate is someone who is retained. You retain them, they keep coming back. An advocate is someone who grows with you, who purchases more things along the way. And then an advocate is someone who advocates for you, who goes out there, who tells their friends and their families that they love your products, that they've been with you for a while and they really love what they bought, and that they're recommending those things to their friends and family or coworkers or whoever they know. And then on the flip side, they might also be going online to advocate for you. So for example, they might be going to a Facebook page and posting about your products. They might be going to an online review place like Google Maps or a G2 Crowd, or any one of those kind of online review places, and putting in a good word about you. Those are awesome people that will help grow your business as they tell others, and others hear about it, and hopefully they'll come to your business. Those others will hopefully come to your business as well. And so the more you can take someone who starts at the very start here as a lead and drives all the way into advocate, the intent is that they keep coming back, they keep growing, and so obviously paying you more and giving you more money for the products and services that they continue to purchase, but also they are telling others, and hopefully those others become leads, and therefore kind of keeps going into this cycle, and eventually keeps sort of snowballing onto itself. And so we really focus a lot, especially in subscription business, on this part of the engine, the acquisition engine, and going into this customer growth engine that is hopefully snowballing. And those advocates are growing, those advocates are renewing, and they're telling others about your services, and that as well just kind of continues to snowball. And so hopefully you can kind of see like the reason why here, why this is so important. Again, it's obviously incredibly important to retain your customers, but if you can turn them into advocates and they become lead generators for you, they do your selling or they do your marketing for you, that is a phenomenal growth opportunity for your business, because you're no longer paying for your own marketing. Your customers are doing the marketing for you. And yeah, as any business will tell you, if your customers are selling for you and they're telling others to come in, how amazing to help just grow your business for you. So So we definitely want to keep doing that and keep growing in those ways. There's a quick question here, so I'll just quickly pause for a second and just check. Thanks for the info. Perfect. So I will keep going on here. So a customer growth framework. So as I said, that last screen was really just about the engine. What are the pieces of the, how do you take a person that goes from a lead or someone that just found out about your company and then hopefully becomes an advocate. That's kind of at a high level, looking at what the customer growth engine or the growth engine is doing for your business. But when you look under the covers and you look, you look under the hood, look at the components of the engine, there's a bunch of key pieces that are growing your engine. So one, there's strategy. The strategy for your customer growth engine is, what is your customer journey? How are you driving the experience? How are you driving engagement? How are you driving value realization? And we'll go into some more of these in detail. How are you driving user adoption and retention and expansion? And so that's a little bit of this on the strategy side. Below that, if you can kind of think of an engine and you look at the components, you might have, your intake and, your spark plugs and your exhaust and all the different components. Like that first piece is a strategy piece. The next piece is your processes. So how do you onboard a customer? How do you deal with that customer cross-functionally across, your sales and your customer success or your onboarding or customer support teams? How do you deal with them across your different functions and coordinate and make sure that you're all telling the same stories? How do you train your customers and engage them? How do you manage the risks? Like if they're telling you they're upset or they don't want to renew or they may be unhappy, how do you ensure that those risks are mitigated? How do you qualify your leads or your customer leads? And how do you gain feedback and incorporate that into your products and services? And then the other component is around your people. What are your teams? What's your team structure? What's your compensation? Any commissions or bonus structure? How do you enable your team? And so that's a really important part of it, because your people will, deliver on your processes and deliver on your strategies. Below that, or another component of the framework, is your data and analytics. And so within data and analytics, one of the core pieces is what information do you maintain about your customer? In the systems and in the tech speak or sorry for the background noise here. Sorry, something's printing behind me. In the core systems, we talk about the customer profile. So what information do you hold about your customer? Their first name, their last name, their phone numbers, their demographic details, the details about what they purchased and when they purchased it and when their renewal may be coming up. That's the customer profile information. From there, like there might be some health information that you keep track of your customer. So we think about that as, in the context of software, the health of the customer is really about, are they adopting their products? Have they renewed? Are they happy? Are they giving you a good satisfaction score or in a survey, or did they give you a really poor score? Your sales and marketing data, usage data, renewal and expansions data, risk and opportunity data, and your churn and predictive, and in some cases, churn predictive and analytics, which often doesn't happen in a startup, but most sort of mature companies are starting to think about leveraging predictive analytics to understand potential churn behavior, potential upsell behavior, or anything that may happen with the customer. And so it's important to think through what data can you track about your customer to know where they are in their customer growth, and how do they keep growing from there. And last but not least, it's really about the technology that sort of is the underpinning of all these components. So we think a lot about a CRM. A CRM is basically stands for the customer relationship management tools. A big name out there is Salesforce that you probably have heard of. There's a lot of tools out there, though the market is quite big. The CRM is often the tool that tracks who your customer is and the purchases that they've made. You might have email marketing tools that allow you to market or send emails to your customer that are automated and that don't require a human. You might have tools that track the usage of your customer. How often are they logging in? There's often tools that help track support tickets, so those inbound requests that maybe require some break fix help. Someone is telling you that something's broken or they don't know how to do something and they want to get some help. There's knowledge-based tools where the customers can self-serve and help read through like some articles about how to use your products or how to best leverage the tools or services that you offer. There's a customer community technologies where those technologies allow for customers to go into an online community, engage with other customers, maybe provide product feedback around, wouldn't it be cool if your product did this or that? Maybe they can engage with other people about best practices and how they used your product and services. And so it's really an opportunity for people to interact with each other and ideally do more with your products and services. Or there might be project management tools that you use for onboarding a customer and managing those projects from start to completion. And so these are kind of the core concepts or the core pieces of your customer growth. You don't have to have all of these on day one. It's not necessary that as a startup just gets started, that they have all of these components in place. And it's not necessary that, a customer or a company that's making $1 billion has all of these components in place as well. This is just a bit of a framework that kind of gives you a perspective of here's all the things that you could have. But as you start to kind of think about, your customers and this growth framework and the journey that they're on, you really want to think about, what components do I need in my framework? Do I need a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and maybe some glue to kind of pull it all together? Or do I need something bigger or more robust? For example, with the team structure, do I need 2 people or do we need 100 people? And that's obviously quite different. If you're just looking to build out a team of 2, that's obviously quite different than if you're looking to build out a team of 100. You're going to need a lot more enablement, structure, all of those things to build out a team of 100 versus a team of 1 or 2 people. So this is a very high level, and I want to start jumping into a little bit of another layer of this framework and how you can build out or map out your customer journey. And so when we looked at a couple screens ago, I took you through how you take a lead or a human who is just learning about your products and services and how you drive them into becoming an advocate. This framework here, what you're seeing on, is a continuation of that framework. And so those the vertical columns here are really those pieces. And so I'm not in this case here, I'm not looking at the acquisition engine. I'm not looking at the sales and marketing side where we went from a lead to a prospect. I'm really looking at just the post sales. So they just purchased, and now as soon as they purchased, I'm starting to think about how do I onboard them? How do I train them? How do they start using our products? And then how do they grow and renew? So it's all about post-sales activities. And then within these horizontal layers, I'm thinking about the pieces that I need from my customer growth framework on the previous slide. So what are the different processes that I need? What are the different KPIs or the data parts that I need along each of these different columns? And again, what are the different tools like software tools or technologies that I need to help support that? And so it's really kind of combining both of those previous slides and ideally giving you a roadmap effectively to take your customers from, step 1 to step 2 to step 3. And so we look back at the mountain. This is the steps of the mountain. This, you can kind of consider maybe onboarding base camp 1 on climbing to Mount Everest, and then training base camp 2, and so on. And so you're really looking to get your customer to this finish line, or arguably it never finishes, but you're really looking to kind of keep pushing your customers through to this pieces. So I want to look in these in a bit more detail here, and kind of jump in a bit into more information and just break down each of these components. This is a complete example. This example is based on a technology company, but it could be something that you do for any type of company. And I, as one of the slides here, I want to leave you as well with this table, because it gives you this table, I think, is a really good way of kind of organizing your thoughts and putting things on paper. It doesn't necessarily have to be a table. I tend to think in tables a little bit more than in sticky notes, but oftentimes people will use sticky notes, or another part like a Visio diagram or a process map or something like that to map out these components. But yeah, don't think that it has to be in this framework, but I do want to provide you this table just to give you a bit of an example. So here's what it kind of looks like in A to Z for the sort of totality of it. But let's jump into each of these different sections. So onboarding, when I look at this first stage, I want to think of first what's happening on the customer side. What are the outcomes or goals that the customer is trying to achieve in this stage? And what are the things that I'm expecting the customer to do? On my side, and I on my business's side, I've written down here a CSM. CSM stands for Customer Success Manager. So in a technology world, we often talk about the person who is doing the work on my company side is what we would call a customer success manager normally. But this could be anyone. This could be the person that works in the coffee shop. This could be a service clerk. It could be, any type of role. It doesn't really matter the name of the role, but effectively what this is really showing is, what are you doing and what is the customer doing? So what are the customer goals? What are the activities that they need to do? On your side, what are your goals? What are your activities that you need to do? And sometimes we call these things playbooks. So essentially, just like, if you think of football, what are the plays that you have to play to get to the end line? These are processes or steps or things that you need to do. And then what are the touches? So what are the human to human interactions that have to happen? And so these may be over the phone, these may be over Zoom class or Zoom meeting, sorry. These may be through email, these may be automated emails. It really doesn't matter, how you interact with it, with the customer, but what are those interactions? What are those touches? And then what are the metrics that help support that? And what are the tools that I need? Sometimes the tools are technology, but sometimes it's a piece of paper. Sometimes it's something tangible, or a piece of paper, support article, an email, whatever it is. But as you think about your company, you really want to think through all these pieces. And so when I think about onboarding for a software for technology company, the goal of the customer is to really figure out what they want and set it up and learn how to administer that tool, or learn how to use that tool. They might have to fill out some things to provide their requirements. They might need to attend a meeting to talk about, what they want and to tell me what they want. And there may be some other activities where they have to go fill out some things or click on some things in the tool to set up their name or their user or whatever it may be. And so think about, mapping out what those activities are, because you really want to be thoughtful about all of the things that you put on their on their plate. And hopefully you can automate some of those things or make them super simple so that they're not, getting kind of roadblocked or stopping along the way that potentially will create a bad experience. On your side, the goal of onboarding is usually to set up the new customer. There might be a bunch of things that you need to do, like set up a meeting. We call this, usually the first meeting with a customer is called a kickoff. So essentially the very first touch point where, you introduce yourself, you say, welcome to the family, you congratulate them on purchasing the best product ever. And then hopefully, you talk about next steps and what, where will you be taking them and what can they expect from you and your products and services. And then you might have to customize the application and you might have to test that, make sure that all the configurations are working. You might have to work with your customer to test that as well. And so these are just a sample of the activities that can happen on your side. And then from a touches perspective, there might be this first initial kickoff meeting, and there might be some status update meetings or like weekly meetings that you might have with a customer to get them started and using your product. Those things are, as I said, those are the activities and the touches or the interactions that you have with your customer. Along the way, there are some metrics that'll keep you honest or keep you seeing, how effective are you in these processes. And so I've got an example here of the time it takes to onboard a customer. What we measure in the industry is often like, what time, what's the start date of they purchased and how long did it take to get them started in the application. That time, you want to make sure that it's as quick as possible. Think, for example, purchasing something from Amazon. If I can receive my products in 1 or 2 days, if I purchase from Amazon, I'm a happy camper. I'm ecstatic that I received it. Within 1 or 2 days, the product that I purchased is still top of mind, and I can put that new product to work and I can start using it right away. If it takes 60 days or 90 days, or let's say even a year for me to receive my product and finally start using it, I'm obviously not going to be a happy camper. I've probably become disengaged. I possibly have completely forgotten about what I purchased, or have completely moved on and I've written it off and said, you know what, I don't think I'm going to be receiving this product. Excuse me. And so that's obviously a worst case scenario, right? Receiving an Amazon product in a year, but that time to receive that product or to get onboarded or get started is obviously incredibly important. You want to make sure that that's nice and short and tight and crisp. A customer maturity index, oftentimes, let's say, for example, a customer is trying to purchase some software for their business, and they want to be able to use the software to help them track all their financials and their accounting and stuff like that. A customer maturity index often is a way to gauge how mature the customer is at adopting your products. Are they a business that understands finance and accounting, or do they have no idea about how to apply your product in the context of their business? So someone who doesn't know anything about finance or accounting and doesn't know anything about the software has a very low maturity in that space. Someone who's done this hundreds of times and who's shifting from a competitor product and moving into your product is incredibly mature. And so oftentimes the time to onboard for those super mature companies or mature clients, will be a lot faster versus someone who's not mature will take a lot longer. And so your products or services may not have to have a maturity index, but that's just one way of thinking about how ready is the customer when they start, and how can I incorporate that into my onboarding so that they are effective and we get to that successful onboarding as quick as possible. And so, and then last but not least, I've got some tools here. So that gives you an example of, some of the tools that help me along these, that help me to deliver these processes or these playbooks or these activities, and that help me get to the goal that I'm expecting. So I might have a slide or a PowerPoint template that I use for my meetings. I might have some support articles that help onboarding or show how-to things, for example. I might have some email templates that I'm using that I'm rinse and repeating, that I don't have to think through. I just, after a meeting, I have this meeting template that I use that is a tool that can help me just speed up the work that I'm doing. I might have the knowledge base with some support articles or some articles in it. And so these are kinds of examples of things that will help to get you to these outcomes. And so we just looked at onboarding here in detail, but as you can imagine, as I kind of think about each of these different steps or different stages of my journey, I want to be able to map out all of these pieces, like the goals, the tasks, the assets, the tools, whatever it is that will help me get to those goals. Your customer journey may have completely different stages, right? As I said, like this is based off on a technology company that is selling software that requires some onboarding or requires some setup and it requires some training. Yours may not need training, right? Like there's some often, if I download a game, for example, there may not be a formal training process. I might just go into the game and learn through the user interface. And so your experience, your customer might be learning through the application. If I sell cookies, I probably don't need to train a customer how to eat a cookie. That probably comes intuitively with your customers. And so you may not require, very formal training. If I sell food boxes where a customer has to select the types of menus they want, and they will receive the full meal in a box, and all they need to do is put it together. I will often in that scenario, I will need to train my customer to understand what to pick, what do they need to select to make their their final choices, and then I need to train them and provide materials for them to learn how to cook the things that they just bought. And so maybe there's like a recipe card or a little video or something like that that helps that customer learn how to apply or how to cook the thing that they just bought. In the context of software, there could be things that they self-guide themselves. So maybe there's like some YouTube videos or knowledge base where they just go through how-to stuff. Or it could be very formal training where I have someone who's delivering training. So I set up a meeting, I have a trainer, or myself, maybe I do the training, and I get in a room with the customer or on a Zoom call, and I walk them through, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. And so there's varying degrees of training, but the intent is really to teach your customer how to use your products and services so that they get the value that they're expecting out of it. Once they know how to do it, or once they know what they need to do, the next step is often launch. And launch meaning, let's get started, let's start using it. And in the case of software, like if you buy finance software or a CRM or something super complicated, there may be a very formal launch where I have to figure out what day am I going to start using it and who's going to start using it, and do I need to train those users, and just making sure that everyone's ready to go. For an application or a download on your phone, the launch is instantaneously, right? I quickly, like if I download a new game on my app, I download it quickly. 2 seconds later, I filled out whatever information I have to fill out. That happened almost instantaneously. Maybe I learned through just clicking on a couple things of how to use the game. Like for example, I don't know, if I download the latest type of game of Candy Crush, for example, or a Tetris type game, it's pretty intuitive. You don't really, there's not a lot of steps to learn it. There's a quick couple couple commands or gestures that you can do in the app to move objects around and stuff, but it's pretty quick to learn. And it all kind of happens at once, right? Like you download the app, you set up your account, and then you learn and start playing all at the same time. It's all happening at the same time. And so it can be, the experiences for launching can be very different depending on the type of product or service that you're selling. If I think about just some of the key things here, the goals or the tasks, I mean, this stuff at the top here is probably self-explanatory in terms of, the customer wants to start using your product or start using the app. For some of the playbooks or some of the activities that are on your side, you might have to launch some communications or start, following up with users who didn't start or didn't log in for the first time. And so there might be a ton of different types of things that you do here, but just this gives you a couple examples. From a metric standpoint, some of the key things that we measure to ensure that we're getting there fast is just like time to onboard, the time it takes to set up. We often measure the time it takes to get to first value. First value in the context of software is usually the first time. So what it means is the first time that they start getting some value out of your products. And so with the context of software, usually that means the first time they start using it. And or in the context of a game, it might be the same thing. First time they start actually playing the game. In the context of a food box, it might be the actual, like, I get to eat it. That's the value that I'm getting. And so it's that first piece of value. With software, that's like day one. And then usually you continue to get value. And so there might be a second value, third value, and hopefully, up to infinity in terms of value. And so we often, the faster you can get to that, the sooner, as I was saying about onboarding, the more, the better the experience is and the happier your customer will be. Other measures, we talk about active users. So are your customers coming in and actively, continuously using the software? And so an active user is someone who keeps coming back. An unactive user is obviously someone who used it once and didn't come back, or used it a couple times and didn't come back. We also measure sentiment. So are they satisfied with your product or service? Are they likely to tell others about it? And so those are kind of critical metrics to be able to measure how successful your launch is. And then at bottom, I have a couple examples of tools here, but same thing as we were saying before, some knowledge-based articles or some templates, maybe some email campaigns that are drip campaigns, where a drip campaign is effectively an email, a series of emails that are drip fed to the customer on a certain cadence. So, maybe week one, they get a, hey, did you know you can do this? Or did you know you should set up your profile, or whatever it is. Maybe those are step one. On week two, you might get another email that says, hey, did you know you can do this? Or, did you know that there's other people in your neighborhood using the same tools? Those are kind of drip campaigns or email campaigns that help to push the user adoption. As you grow your customer, these are all about continuing on that adoption path and making sure that they use it more and more and more and more. So we might check in on the customer, set up a QBR or quarterly business review, which is effectively a big keyword or a key term in the industry that just means talk to your customer and find out what they're doing and what are their goals and how are they progressing along. We might send them surveys. We might talk to them about expansion opportunities or new licenses, or upsell them on new features and things like that. And so those are some of the processes there. We might have various touches where we talk to them. Some of the key metrics along this part of the journey are really how active are they? Are they monthly active users? Are they coming in? Sometimes depending on the type of application you have or the type of products and services you have, you can have customers that are coming in every single day, that are using your products every day or buying your things every single day, or they could be doing it every week or every month, or however, whatever cadence it is. It really depends on the products and services that you sell. Like if you're someone who sells cookies, you probably don't expect a customer to be in there daily, right? Or unless they have a problem. You might more be on the point where you expect them to come in monthly. Same thing with software, right? If you're Facebook, you expect daily. Actually, Facebook is after hourly active users, because they expect you to come in multiple times in a day. Whereas if you're a finance software, monthly might be perfect, right? It's not something that you have to use every single day. And then we think about engagement, and so that just means how often are they connecting with you. And again, we think about sentiment as well, like how happy are they along this part of the journey. And then a bunch of tools here as examples. And then last but not least, the renew. Ideally for the customer, maybe they're hoping to continue on, and maybe they want to get a better deal, like they want to get a discount. For yourself, you obviously want to make sure that you renew the subscription. And so there may be some things that you need to do with that transaction, confirm that it's going to happen, maybe process the transaction. So some different steps that you need there. And hopefully there's maybe some touches there where you talk to them. The key metrics along this part of the journey are really about your renewal rate or your retention rate. So retention meaning the percentage of people that have renewed, which is effectively the renewal rate. The flip side of that is your churn rate, the amount of people that didn't renew. And so obviously you want that really small, and you obviously want your retention rate as close as possible to 100%. And then the expansion rates are the percentage of accounts or of customers that have expanded. And so obviously, of course, the more you can get to 100% of your customer base expanding, the happier we'll be, the happier investors will be, and the more your company will grow. And so hopefully that's happening in your business as well. So that's we deep dive on all of these pieces. Again, this is just sort of the high level here again, all together in one. I do recommend every single business, no matter how big or small, to think through this growth framework and figure out, what are the different stages that my customer is going through? What are the different types of base camps or camps on that mountain that I have to push them along to? What are the different goals and tasks and processes and tools and technologies and metrics that I have across those pieces? Who's doing what? Across those pieces, and what are the strategies that I have to move those pieces along? And as I said, you can put this on a table like this. It could be, in a PowerPoint, or it could be on a whiteboard where you map out all the things. But just think through, like, what are all these pieces? Because if you can nail out these items, you in turn will end up with more successful customers and more customers that are more likely to expand and more likely to renew. And so I won't go into too much details, but this is another way of looking at it, what you just saw there. This is just more kind of a sticky note version, although it's not in sticky notes, but you can imagine, like, here's my journey where I adopt or onboard them, they renew, they expand, they renew, they expand. I've got some various playbooks or processes that are happening here at the bottom. I can use sticky notes to paint that along the journey, like step 1 here, step 2 there, step 3, etc. I can have some plans that are happening overarching that. So, like, for example, I might have a bunch of sticky notes that all together create the onboarding plan, or they create a risk mitigation plan, or an expansion plan, or adoption plan, and so on. And so those are kind of my groupings of my different sticky notes that produce a plan. And then, at the very top, like, I might have some different outcomes that have to be reached and delivered. And so So just a different framework. I know it looks completely different than what you saw on the table, but effectively it's the exact same thing. It's just a different way of looking at it. Instead of looking at it from a table, more kind of an engineering maybe way of looking at it, it's more looking at it a timeline and thinking about sticky notes and what's happening, one after the other. So to build your customer growth engine, as we kind of reviewed or as we went through these pieces, make sure that you define the phases along your journey. Make sure that you think through what are the different stages and what are the different camps that I have to bring my customer along to get to that the top of the mountain. Make sure that you define outcomes or goals for each stage. Like, what is the goal to get here? What do I need to complete? What are the key touches or key engagements that I have to have with my customer, and whether it's email or Zoom or in person, whatever it may be. Number 4, define the activities, the steps, the tasks, the things that your customer needs to do, and hopefully number 5, what your team needs to do. It's incredibly important. Just map out all those activities, and if it's too much on the customer, if you think, hey, that looks a little bit heavy, or maybe looks a little bit complex, think about what assets or tools you can give them that maybe simplifies it, or what can you automate to, or lessen the burden on them so that it's not too cumbersome for them and you're not expecting too much of them. Number 6, make sure that you define some key metrics to be able to see where are you along that journey. Has your customer onboarded on time? Are they using the tools? Have they expanded? There's a bunch of key metrics that will help tell you where your customer is along their journey, and are they at the right path or at the right moment along that journey. Number 7, what tools can you use to help you move along that journey a little bit smoother, but also what tools are you able to use to automate some of the pieces or to keep track of some of the pieces. And so we talked about software, we talked about PowerPoints, we talked about email templates. I mean, could be any sorts of tools, you name it. But just thinking through, like, what are those things that can help me to track my customer and to do the things that I need to do, or to help my customer do the things that they need to do. And so those are just some quick high level steps to build out this map. I really encourage you to do this. This will drastically help you build out this customer growth framework that'll help get your customers to renewal and help get them to hopefully an expansion. And just to finish off on some key best practices, always map your journey. Always think through like what that journey is. There's no person in the world that will just show up to Mount Everest and try to attempt climbing it. It's incredibly important that you map it out so that you ensure success of the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve. Focus on key activities that'll help onboard or help get the customer set up, hopefully to help get the customer to renew, making sure that renewal is incredibly seamless and easy for the customer, because you don't want to lose them at that point. And hopefully you can drive some expansion. If you can start with $1 and that customer keeps paying $1 all the time and they keep renewing, if you can turn that $1 into $1.25 or into $2, $3, whatever it may be, that's going to drive your net retention. Net retention meaning the delta of how many people you've retained and how many people have you expanded. So that's the key to any subscription business. You want them to keep coming back and you want them to grow and use more of your products and services. Number 3, figure out the tools that'll help automate or help keep track of those processes and those pieces of the customer growth, and just making sure that it's systematized and it's easy to operationalize. Number 4, KPIs. Yeah, ensuring that you have the right metrics to see where they are along the journey. And number 5, you really are your customer's coach. If anything, you are the coach on Mount Everest, helping your customer up from base camp 1 all the way to the top of the mountain. And never forget that you're that advisor. You are the trusted advisor that'll help your customer achieve the things that they're looking to achieve. And the more you have that framework or that perspective, the more that you can help your customer reach the goals that they're hoping to reach. Just like if I was a fitness coach and someone came to me and said, I want to run a marathon, it's exactly that kind of scenario that you want to set up with your post-sales teams or your customer growth teams. They're all coaches. They're all helping your customers reach the outcomes that they're hoping to achieve. And so that's my last slide. And I'd love to open up the floor for any questions, comments. We have a little bit of time left, about 10 minutes left. But if there's any questions, comments, I can flip back to some slides, or if you have anything that is, question about maybe your business or your startup, yeah, I'd love to be able to answer those. I mean, I'll just check as well. There was one. Okay, yeah, no open questions there. Did you have any questions or any thoughts or ideals that I might be able to help you guys with? If you like, I think you might be able to raise your hand, and I think I can allow you to talk. Sorry. No questions? All right. So just, yeah, keep in mind a couple things. As I said, never go at it without putting a plan together. Think through what your growth engine is. Think through how you take a customer and drive them to the outcomes that they're looking to achieve. And those continued transactions, right? Customers have to purchase once. Hopefully they can purchase or renew a bunch of times, and hopefully you can drive some expansion so that they can become more valuable to yourself. So so thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And if there's no other questions, I think we'll call it a day, and thank you very much, and take care, everyone.